Wow, this house is cute. But can I really get in the game in this economy? I do have savings, and I am responsible-ish. Ugh, I should bury it. I'm being wild. But what if I'm not being wild, though? Could I actually score a...
Kick off your home buying journey with Zillow's new BuyAbility tool. It makes it easy to find out what you can afford, so you can get off the bench and onto the playing field with confidence. Check your BuyAbility, only on Zillow.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Birmingham has always been my home from home, and it's been a busy weekend of commentating, reporting for radio, and of course, my passion project, this podcast.
And they are away cleanly. It wasn't the best of starts for Amy Hunt. In fact, she's really struggling here. And Bianca Williams it is who's going to come through it.
This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast, covering the games all the time, rather than once every 4 years. I'm Michael.
And I'm John, and Michael has been back in Brum, also the home of athletics in the UK, of course, for another weekend of indoor action.
It was great. More on that in a moment. Ahead of the Europeans in the Netherlands and the World Championships in China, we'll have a full roundup of all the British indoor athletics action.
There's also been British Championships and world records at the National Track Cycling Championships in Manchester. Plus,
Michael Weddock's Winter Wonders.
I'll never get tired of hearing that. We're finally heading into spring, but we have got some more Winter Olympics focused podcasts to come in the coming weeks. Listen out for those. Make sure you follow and download. And we always love to hear from you as well. You can get in touch with us, see what we're all about anytime. You can find Anything But Footy across all of the social media platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, sometimes TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky. Check us out there. And you can also find us on our new, recently updated website. You can read our blogs there and find out everything that's going on. You can find us online, anythingbutfooty.com. So let's start then in Birmingham at the Utilita Arena with the UK Indoor Athletics Championships, 2-day event. Over 20 British indoor champions crowned across the weekend. And importantly for many as well, going for qualification standards for those European indoors, which are coming up early next month. They are going to be taking place in Apeldoorn in the Netherlands. And then, of course, there's a World Indoor Championships delayed because of COVID, actually, but we are finally getting those World Indoor Championships in China as well. A great weekend of indoor athletics. Back, of course, where we were for the Keighley Classic. So all the branding had changed. It was now a British athletics event, of course. And we had plenty of finals and plenty of action right across the 2 days. We'll start with the men in the middle distances and just highlight some of the performances there. We spoke on the last episode of the podcast to the Scot Neil Gourley. Well, he set a championship record in the 1500 meters. It was a time of 3:38.84. So he regained his title and confirmed that he will be taking up a place in the team for Great Britain and Northern Ireland for the European indoors. And George Mills as well, another one breaking a championship record over the 3000 meters distance, again confirming he will take up a place in the team for the European indoor athletics. He broke that championship record by nearly 10 seconds, a time of 7 minutes, 40.16 seconds. And afterwards, I spoke to him.
It's good, yeah. We came here to do a job, first of all, and that was qualify for Europeans in 2 weeks' time. So that was my main aim. And obviously, when I'm racing, I want to win. I want to prove that I'm the best over this distance in the country. And fortunately, was able to do that today.
And we know from last season, especially in Paris, you like to race, you like to compete, you like to be involved. How does this indoor season then look for you?
So that's guaranteed selection for Apeldoorn in 2 weeks' time. And then there's World Indoors in China at the end of next month. So I'll be hopefully going to both those championships, and I'll be there to win medals.
And over what distances for those?
3,000, yeah.
Talk to me about, obviously, a championship record today, and you broke a British record recently. How do records compare, though, with winning titles and having gold medals around your neck?
So I think running national records, first of all, is something really important to me. To be like the fastest ever over a distance in your country is really cool. Championship records, a little bit different, because you know how championship races are. They can be slow and sometimes you just have to win. But yeah, you want to have it all as an athlete, don't you? You want to run records and win medals. So that's what I'll be aiming to do over the next few years.
So we're just recapping the British Indoor Athletics Championships across the weekend. That was George Mills. There was also a 9th British Indoor title and another championship record for Scott Lincoln in the shot putter, the 2-time Olympian, through 20.86 metres. Here he is.
Scott, congratulations. I know you're quite used to having British champion across your chest, but it never gets boring, does it?
No, absolutely not. It's always good to come and get the job done, and to top it off with a championship record today. It's been, in my eyes, a long time coming, and so it's special, obviously, after losing Jeff Capes, to take his record. I'm sure he'll be up there shouting at me somewhere saying, why didn't you do it sooner?
Yeah, we saw I think it's his grandson was at the English Age Group Championships in Sheffield recently as well. Obviously a huge name in British sport, Jeff Capes.
Yeah, absolutely, even in strongman and throwing. But yeah, his 2 grandsons are coming through the ranks nicely, and they're improving. That's the main thing. So it's good to see them on the circuit, and hopefully in a few years they'll be pushing me further.
Let me ask you about the winter, because last time we spoke properly was in Paris. Obviously, you were pretty devastated with what happened there. And the question I asked you at the time was who was going to go and pick you up after that. How did you pick yourself up and go away and come back as good as you have?
I've been in Australia for the last 3 months. I've been under the guidance of a very good coach over there, probably one of the best in the world in my opinion. Not discrediting the people who have coached me in the previous time, but yeah, I've just had a bit of a fresh change at the other side of the world, and flew in 48 hours ago, so pretty jet lagged right now, but yeah, it's just change of scenery just to freshen things up and get me excited to throw again, and I've found my love for the sport again.
So interesting chat that with Scott Lincoln. I remember speaking to him. I've known Scott since he was a junior, been interviewing him for many, many years, and I remember interviewing him clearly devastated in Paris at the Olympic Games, where he didn't reach the final, just didn't perform at all at his second Olympic Games. So interesting to hear there, you know, that he's gone away and ripped up pretty much his playbook, what he'd done before. He's relocated to Australia, set up a new coaching setup there, as he was telling us. And hopefully, and he looked in really good form. He looked confident, looked like he was enjoying the championships as well. Hopefully, of course, this year, there's a World Outdoor Championships. He'll be targeting selection for that and targeting some medals as well. He has a Commonwealth Games medal from Birmingham 2022. But I think certainly globally, he feels that he's good enough that he can reach finals and maybe be a top 10, top 12, and certainly, you know, be in and amongst it in a European, a continental level for winning medals. So, yeah, Scott Lincoln, another one I think that will be heading to Appledorn, feeling good after his performance in Birmingham. Turning our attention momentarily then to the women, Hannah Nuttall outsprinted Laura Muir in the women's 3,000 metres. There was a win for Isabel Boffey in the 800 metres, and friend of the pod, Georgia Hunter-Bell, was the winner in the 1,500 metres, and we had one of our customary catch-ups.
Congratulations. Last week we spoke, it was all about you against the clock.
Yeah.
Today it's about the title. How do these compare and contrast?
Yeah, they're different kind of races. Like last week was pretty much like a time trial. It was like a hard training session with 4,000 people watching. You're constantly looking at the clock and writing spits on your hands to see where you are. And then today, you only need to win by a metre. It's different kind of racing. But I like practicing different styles. I think you need all of that practice for when you come to a championship to know how to run it, no matter how the race goes.
I hope you're not offended by this question. You are an Olympic medalist, but are you still learning championship running as such?
I mean, I'm learning things all the time. Yeah, I learn things in training. I learn things in racing. I don't think you're ever done with learning. if any athlete says that theirs done, there's nothing else that they can learn, I'd be surprised. So yeah, absolutely. Like last year was amazing, but I feel like this year is a fresh year. I still have to earn my stripes and, you know, prove myself all again this year. Probably this year with more pressure, so it's like even more, like I want to work even harder. So yeah.
Yeah, how does that pressure differ now? Because people know you, you're being asked to sign autographs, you're being asked for selfies. That wasn't happening this time last year.
No, it's different, yeah. I was like, when we spoke at Worlds last year, I was like working out how I could take time off work and put my out of office on to compete. And obviously this year it's very different. But yeah, no, I just feel really lucky that I'm able to be a full-time athlete. I know what it's like to juggle both. So the pressure and the expectations is part of the job, and if you don't have those pressures and expectations, then you're not running fast enough.
Final question then, 3 big medals for you this year, world, indoors and outdoors, and the Europeans coming up next.
Yeah, I mean, that was the goal. As many opportunities to medal, I'm going to try and do it, and I want to get as much harder as possible.
Always good to chat.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
So that was Georgia Hunter-Bell, who is targeting 3 medals this year. It's a really interesting year for athletics and track and field fans, because you've got obviously the World Outdoors in Tokyo, which are quite late on this year. They're going to be in September, and then these 2 big indoor championships as well.
Quite interesting as well that Georgia was talking about how she's coping with pressure, that now she's the favourite for a lot of the events that she's competing in. We've seen her obviously in the last couple of weeks here in Birmingham, as you say, in the UK, but she's an Olympic bronze medalist, as you say, the World Championships to come indoors. She's the world indoor medalist as well from Glasgow from last year, and then the World Outdoors as well. And that does change it when you're there to be targeted. You can't just come through on the inside. People will be looking for you, won't they?
People know who she is now. It's a really interesting dynamic when I speak to people in the media, and I just speak to, friends and family about athletics and track and field. And there's only a certain number of names that really have that push through, if you like, to the general public. So people will hear about Katarina Johnson-Thompson and they will know who she is. And she was there in Birmingham. She took part in a couple of events. She exited the shot put competition just after 3 throws, incidentally. People will know who Laura Muir is, who, again, was there at the weekend. Of course, people know Keely Hodgkinson now as well. And I was watching her on the Jonathan Ross show on Saturday night. And that's, how far Keely Hodgkinson has come. But Georgia Bell is a name, a personality that people now know about. She has captured the public imagination. I think, one, because she's very active on the social media platforms. She's terrific with all that behind the scenes content, and people love all of that stuff. I noticed this week, talking about that, Jack Law, the diver, has started a new YouTube channel going behind the scenes. It's a conversation that we've had recently. I'm sure it's a conversation that we're going to be having more and more of. But going back to Georgia, I remember, following her progress last season. She walked around Glasgow at the World Indoor Championships where she finished 4th. No one recognised her. I think I was the only person that asked for a selfie. I love a selfie. I think I was the only person in Glasgow. Now everyone wants selfies with her and autographs and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think big year for her.
I think the thing to remember as well, she's 31 years of age. So you got to make the moments now. She's got to do it. She's got to go to these indoors, the Europeans and the Worlds, and as long as she's fit, go to the out. You can't say, well, I'll wait till LA. It's 3.5 years away.
No, I mean, she is targeting LA. Of course she is. But I think she's got to just take it season by season. This is her first ever season as a full-time professional athlete. And she's got to take every opportunity. And that is on the track, first and foremost, off it as well. I mean, you look at someone like Keely Hodgkinson, who's 22 now.
Yeah.
I mean, what 2-time Olympic medalist already. I mean, and you think to yourself, how many could she go on and win? But it's not necessarily about that. It's about, I think, how many years you've been doing it and the toll that takes on the body. And so I think Georgia Bell, albeit she's in her 30s now, but she hasn't had that racing in her legs in the same way that other people her age might have that have been on the program for years and years. So yeah, it'll be really interesting just to follow Georgia and Keely with the 10-year age difference. But Georgia, the relative newcomer, the inexperienced one in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, to use a football analogy, it's Jamie Vardy who got better and better as he got older and older, and then won a Premiership title with Leicester. while Wayne Rooney was a kid and was brilliant as a kid, but actually by the time he was over 30, he was getting to the point where he was struggling because he played so much football. As you say, Georgia hasn't got that because she went away and had that break, didn't she? So yeah, really, really interesting to see how she gets on. And we always talk about Dame Kelly Holmes when we talk about this, the fact that she was always there or thereabouts for major championships, but because she didn't race that much because she was injured, that when she eventually became that double Olympic champion in her 30s, it was because, you know, she got the experience from doing lots of racing, but hadn't raced that much because of the injuries.
Yeah. Moving on to what I thought was the final of the weekend in terms of the lineup, and that was the women's 400 meters. I mean, what a stacked field in there. You had Anne Browning, got a couple of Olympic medals last year.
Remember speaking to her in Paris.
Yeah. Lena Nielsen, of course, a remarkable athlete living with MS, another Olympic medalist. You also had Hannah Kelly in there as well, and Amma Pippi as well, who's got a couple of World Championship medals. So that was a really stacked race. And it was Anne Browning, actually, who came out on top. So Appledorn and the Europeans for Anne Browning. Then we'll have to wait and see, as I understand it, what she then goes on to do with the rest of her indoor season. In the men's event, another Olympic relay medalist, a double Olympic relay medalist, Alex Haydock-Wilson, triumphed. And afterwards, we spoke to him.
My first indoor British title, my second British title overall. Indoors was where I first made my sort of like breakthrough on the national stage. I got a bronze here back in 2019. It holds a special place for me. This crowd holds a special place, this stadium. So to win here in front of such a receptive crowd, running with some of my friends in the sport, means the world.
And why was it important for you to come and do this indoor season? And how does that indoor season look for you?
Why it was important was because we're setting off with a new cycle. I have a new coach now. A lot of things are new. And I wanted to set the right habits early. I wanted to come out and show myself as I am. New mindset, some new technical pointers to offer, a good winter, throw myself in the deep end and see what came out of it. I think this is indoors is a great place to find yourself a little bit because it's such an experiment. You can never really plan a race to beat for beat. You just have to get stuck in. And that really speaks to my kind of personality as an athlete.
And mentally, what did you take from your performances outdoors last year, particularly, of course, the Olympic Games?
Mentally, what I took from that is that I love competing with a team, that I can come back from any circumstance, and that my power comes from the meaning that I derive from the competition. In the Olympics, I was able to find a 44.5. The rest of the season, I've been sort of floating around those 45 mids. So knowing that when it matters, when I've got a team behind me, when I've got all my loved ones surrounding me, that I can find a whole second, it taught me that that's my foundation. So tap into that energy source for the whole cycle.
Appledorn next?
Appledorn next, yes. Thank you.
That's Alex Haydock-Wilson, who won 2 relay medals in Paris at the Olympic Games and is now off to the European Indoor Championships. Just a quick word on day one and the sprints, the men's champion over 60 metres. Here is Jeremiah Azu.
Congratulations, British champion. That must mean something to be the best in the country.
Wow, when you put it like that, it sounds amazing. We all work so hard, so for me to come out on top, I don't think words can describe it. I just love what I do, and I hope I'm entertaining people the right way. But yeah, honestly, words can't describe the feeling.
And there was a really interesting matchup on day one in the women's sprint final, the 60-metre sprint, of course, indoors. Amy Hunt, who was the reigning champion, lined up alongside Bianca Williams on the start line. Let's hear again how it unfolded, and then we'll hear from the winner.
And they are away cleanly. It wasn't the best of starts for Amy Hunt. In fact, she's really struggling here. And Bianca Williams it is who's going to come through. And Amy Hunt had to come with a really late surge, trying to dip on the line. It wasn't the best of starts for the reigning champion, but it looks to be Bianca Williams who's taken the British title. The time 7.19, that is good enough as well. Not only has she won the title, but she has the time to go into the European indoor team.
It means the world. I've had so many ups and downs in my journey, and I feel like I'm on a great path right now, and I'm just over the moon.
Just a quick word on Bianca and Amy. Amy was quite vocal on social media about the delays from the fire that stopped the schedule going on time. It was about 90 minutes delay on Saturday morning. Fortunately, everything was fine and they got ahead. She then ran really quick in the semi-final, but that couldn't then do it in the final. It was a really poor start, as you heard in your commentary.
Yeah, I mean, she stumbled out the starting blocks. I wonder whether she might get the discretionary place. And we'll hear in a few days, as I understand it, what that team is. So she may still go to the European Championships. Yeah, she was way down. I mean, she came through in the second half of the race. I mean, it's only a 60-meter race.
Yeah.
I mean, it's less than 8 seconds. She came through really strong in the second half of the race, and I have no doubt that if she hadn't had that stumble, she would have gave Bianca Williams a real good fight for that title. She ended up, Amy Hunt, finishing in 4th position. She came through, as I said, really dipped on the line, but there was a long wait to separate 3rd and 4th. They must have gone down to thousandths of a second. And she was just there. She was very philosophical about it. She didn't chat too much to too many people afterwards, but she did post a couple of things on her social media about, the performance. So, yeah, she will, I think, be hoping to get that discretionary place. Obviously, I think British Athletics will take soundings from Dina Asher-Smith, Daryl Neater as well. I'd be surprised if either of those are named in the team. So we may still see Amy Hunt in the Netherlands.
So it was quite a weekend in Birmingham, and all this as World Athletics have been trialling the takeoff zone instead of the board in the long jump. Of course, we first told you about it in our chat with CEO of World Athletics, John Ridgeon, this time last year. Now, we know that World Athletics is looking to innovate. They've officially called it Pioneering Change. It's a 4-year program that they're looking at, and they said they would trial this new system. So Germany has staged 2 indoor meetings with this new system, and to quote World Athletics, this is not my words, this is theirs, early feedback indicates that the takeoff zone test had a clear impact on competition flow and spectator experience across both events. Fouls dropped to 13% from a historic average of 32%. And that's what they were saying. They wanted less fouls. You wanted to tune into the long jump and see a real jump. Now, 2-time world long jump champion Malika Mahimbo, who won in Dusseldorf with a 6.87 leap, admitted that she was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't significantly different using the takeoff zone. But what I did think was interesting in the information that World Athletics sent out is that they said they had spoken to spectators and a survey. And again, to quote World Athletics, more than 2/3 of casual fans favoured the innovation, while those actively involved in the sport of athletics lean just as strongly towards the traditional board. And Michael, we have talked about this a number of times, but this is the issue, isn't it? Do you appeal to new audiences who want to be able to tune in, see a long jump, see the furthest they can go, or do you stick with the loyal audience that's there week in, week out in Birmingham last week, in Birmingham the week before, in Sheffield at the England Championships that you went to, the under 20 competitions? Do you stick with the loyal athletics fans and keep the board, or do you try and appeal to a new audience?
Do you know what? None of the athletes that I've spoken to in this indoor season have said to me that they are against new, innovative, exciting developments in the sport.
Apart from if it affects them.
But that's the key thing, apart from if it affects them. So everyone I spoke to at the Keighley Classic, and we heard all the interviews with Georgia Hunter-Bell, with Neil Gourlay, with Lena Nielsen. They all said, this is the future. This is what we need to do. We need to put shows on. It's interesting as well, World Athletics are starting now to release details of their new Ultimate Championships, which are going to take place in Budapest in 2026. So they've said there that there will be just lots of straight finals. So we won't have, hours and hours of heats and semi-finals. People will be racing for their team and individually. They've also said that there will be no more than 2 events taking place at any one time. So they are setting up for a broadcast, a television audience, so that we can see the split screens. And World Athletics and their broadcast partner are now working together to work out how to put that on as a television show. So that's essentially what we're going to get in the Ultimate Championship. So I'm excited for it. But yeah, it's the old school against the new blood, if you like. And sports have to change. I've said this before. Sports have to innovate. And, I can remember you used a football analogy earlier. I can remember when they changed the back pass rule. And everyone was like, well, that's, not right. We've always had back passes in football. But it brought a new dynamic to the game. It made it more exciting. It made it quicker. Now we love the fact that, you know, goalkeepers have to actually be able to play a bit of football, don't we? It takes a little bit of time. And if World Athletics, and they're doing the right thing, that's the key thing. You know, they're trialing it over a long period of time. And perhaps some of those athletes that are now anti-changing the sport, if it was to come into competition in 4 years' time, then actually those athletes that are maybe anti it now may well have moved on with their career. And it will be some of the newer, younger athletes that are entering the sport now that will be the ones that will be affected. And that might just help to smooth that transition if it goes ahead.
Yeah, and the final phrase from World Athletics: continued testing will provide additional insights into the preferences of various stakeholder groups. So they will continue to test this.
This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast, more British Championships and Winter Olympic news to come.
Love, exciting and new. Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever. It's
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships of Bermudan and British Registry.
This is Anything But Footy, the Olympic and Paralympic podcast.
Now, often with the Olympic Games, John and I have to do that magical thing where we need to be in 2 places at once. In fact, at the Olympic Games, you kind of sometimes need to be in 10 places at once. And I managed at the weekend to divide myself in 2, not just be in Birmingham for the British Indoor Athletics, but also by the magic of technology, also be in London at the same time at Parliament Hill. Maybe we are releasing 1 or 2 little secrets about how the broadcasting world is here. But I was also in London Parliament Hill, or was I, commentating on the English National Cross Country Championships. I mean, it's a great event, one I've never been to before, but it's a venue you and I know well, Parliament Hill, because we were there in Highgate for the night of the 10K PBs, which people don't know is like an athletics event where people run around the track, various age groups. But then there's like a Glastonbury-style music festival going on around it, and the athletes run down the back straight, the beer and cheer, as it's called, basically the length of a giant bar. So you've got punters on one side, elite athletes doing world trials and things on the other side. So we were back at a venue that we know, iconic skyline of London, 10 races across the day from under 13 boys and girls. There was around about 6,000 athletes in total that took part. There'd been a lot of heavy overnight rain, although it was dry for spectators. The conditions
you needed wellies, not running, but watching.
Well, there were a lot of the runners who ended up losing shoes or were running holding their shoes. And obviously, as the day unfolded, the conditions got worse and worse, which didn't really help the senior men and the senior women's races, which were right towards the end of the schedule. The women's race, an 8K race, incidentally, was won by Jess Gibbon, 42 seconds ahead of Amelia Quirk, and third was Livy Matthias. Now, Livy, you might remember, won a medal at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham in triathlon for Wales. She's a Welsh and a GB triathlete as well. And talking of triathlon, also competing, Georgia Taylor-Brown, multiple Olympic medalist, Olympic champion. She finished 9th as well. And she had tipped me off in advance, actually. She'd said to me, look, don't big me up in the commentary, Michael. She's obviously, had a little bit of a step back from the level she had been at after the Olympics. She was out in Europe doing some cycle races. I know that that's something she wants to have a look at, some cycle races. She does love the cross country. She had finished 4th there before, so she finished 9th. The Leeds City team, by the way, they took the team title. In the men's event, Richard Slade of the Chiltern Harriers was a bit of a surprise winner. He finished 21st last year. It was a delayed event last year, so it wasn't 12 months ago. It was only a few months ago. He's moved his training base. He's in Oxford now, and it seems to be working for him. James Kingston finished 2nd. Florrie Grierson finished 3rd, and the Bristol and West team won the team title. So, yeah, it was treacherous. It was testing underfoot for the athletes. But, I said in the commentary, if Wembley has football and Lords has cricket and Wimbledon has tennis and the Crucible has snooker, for cross-country running, which dates back this English Championships to 1876. It's the oldest national championships on the planet. Cross country running has Parliament Hill, and it's just this brilliant sight for the men's elite race. The 2,000 plus runners coming towards you. They race up the hill. There was a prize for the first person up the hill. There was a cash prize. So you did see some people pegging it up the top to try and get to the hill first, and then they drop back. Interestingly, neither of our winners of the overall races did that. They chose just to sit back and bide their time a little bit. But great event. Really enjoyed it.
Get cross country in the Winter Olympics. Come on, Seb.
Seb.
We need it.
I did mention that in the commentary as well. I mentioned a lot of things because there was 6 hours of commentary to do on my own. So yeah, but that did get a lengthy mention. Cross country running in the Winter Olympics.
Of course, Seb Coe awaiting his fate in the next month. We will know who the new IOC president is. We're keeping an eye on that here at Anything But Footy. I still need to write that blog, Michael, that I haven't done yet. So that is why I'm going to write that down. To-do list. Now, up the road from Parliament Hill and from Birmingham, in fact, in Manchester, world records and new champions were broken and crowned at the Lloyds National Track Cycling Championships. Anna Morris lowered her own world record in the women's 4K individual pursuit to a magnificent 4:24.060 in the final. She only set it the week before, of course, at the European Championships. Tokyo Olympic champion Katie Archibald, who missed Paris after really seriously injuring herself on a step in her garden last year. You remember that absolutely dreadful freak accident. Well, she was back on top of the podium after dominating the women's points race, scaling 47 points in the 80-lap race to take the national title. Great to see her back. A new name for British cycling, won 3 national crowns. You'll remember him from Paris, former Australian Olympic rider Matthew Richardson, winning the men's Keirin, sprint and team sprint. Lauren Bell also won those 3 titles as well in the women's, and Sophie Unwin and Jenny Hull and double Paralympic champion Steve Bate and his pilot Chris Latham won the women's and men's tandem titles over the weekend.
Just a thought. I mean, we had obviously National Track Cycling Championships taking place at the weekend. We had National Indoor Athletics taking place at the weekend. I just wonder, and we've got, for example, the British Swimming Championships coming up, which are going to be taking place in London at the London 2012 Aquatic Centre, of course. I just wonder whether there is an opportunity, maybe not every year, but maybe one year to try and bring 3 or 4 of these national championships together across the same weekend. I mean, if you were to try and do it in one venue, it would probably, I think, have to be the Olympic Park in London, where you could... I don't know how you would do it with indoor athletics and the velodrome and the swimming. I'm not sure it would work. I'm just sort of throwing the idea out there that for me, I was at the athletics in Birmingham. I was trying to follow the cycling as well. And I was just thinking to myself, wondering, is there a way we could join this up that one maybe dovetails into another? Could you have the cycling in Derby and the indoor athletics in Birmingham and the swimming in Sandwell and create a Midlands event? Could they do something in Manchester? Glasgow would be a place where you could do it potentially.
They've got the Commonwealth Games to do. I know. I totally agree with you. You need a British it's like a British Championships, effectively, like
multi-sport British Championship,
like we've seen with the European Championships. But I think what you've highlighted, Michael, is in some way the problem. London. Well, you couldn't do athletics. You could do the velodrome and the swimming, but you couldn't do athletics. Birmingham,
you could do the outdoors, couldn't you? The outdoor,
but only in the summer. Yeah, only in the summer. If you were doing it indoors, in Birmingham, yes, you've got athletics. Yes, you've got swimming at Sandwell, but you don't have a velodrome, as we know from Birmingham 2022. And Derby's not big enough to hold a crowd, although it's big enough for the British team to train there. Manchester, it's the same issue. You've got athletics, but it's not a massive stadium, but it could be there. Swimming could be done there. I would say probably Manchester is probably more likely to be the place that it could happen. Glasgow, as you rightly say, but it needs federations to come together. And it's this overall, you need someone to put it together. It's like UK Sport need to sit down and go, well, could we put these British Championships on the same weekend? Could it be a weekend where football, it was a big weekend of football this weekend, but actually it wasn't as massive as it could be. So is there a spare weekends? Is there a weekend where international football dominates and actually you could get some coverage that way because England are playing on a Thursday and a Tuesday or whatever, and actually Saturday and Sunday you've got some spare days. It's one of the IOC presidents, I think, again, it will be in my blog, but he wrote down that he would look at the sporting calendar and try and throw it all up in the air and start all over again. Now, I don't know how you do that because every federation wants their own place and their own, which is why the Commonwealth Games had to happen next year in Glasgow, because if you lose it, it's gone and it's gone forever and you never get that space back. But somebody should sit down and do it from a British point of view, probably, and try and map it. And as you say, I think there are some sports that don't want to be just classed as Olympic sports, but it is a really clever way of branding. It's that Team GB brand where everyone knows what Team GB is. In fact, you get called Team GB when they're not Team GB, as we know from the Paralympics, as we know from athlete. I guarantee there will be some people in the media calling the British athletes going to the European Indoor Championships Team GB. It's not Team GB, but it's the brand has beaten it. And I think that's what you ultimately need to do is sit down and come up with can we come up with a British Championships or a way of making this work right across the board so people understand it? And it could be Olympic trials. It's a bit like the IOC came up with these urban Olympic trials, didn't they, before Paris, where they had in Budapest and Shanghai for the skateboarding and breaking and the urban sports. And actually, it was a great qualifying series. And they need to do more of that. That means there's more Olympics. So you're not just every 4 years. You're not just every 2 years with the Winters. There's other Olympic events. And I think ultimately, if you are part of the Olympics, then you have to be known as an Olympic sport.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything you say. What I would say is that in Olympic year, it's easier to get buy-in from people to come and see your individual qualifying events, whether that's athletics, swimming, cycling or whatever. Actually, for me, it's the year like this year where you're coming out of an Olympic year. It's a little bit of a fallow year, if you like, on that elite sporting calendar. But maybe that's the year where you try and just build something and do something a little bit different, brand something a little bit different. You try and create something. I mean, look, it's just ideas. I agree with your idea. I'm throwing another idea out there. We don't get paid the big bucks to decide it. But hopefully we know that, who our audience is for this podcast. Hopefully, one of those CEOs or, communications directors or wannabe IOC presidential candidates who might listen, might hear what we say and think there's something in it. Who knows?
Michael Weddock's Winter Wonders.
Love the jingle. Still love the jingle. We are going to have a special series of podcasts focusing very much on winter sports coming up very soon on Anything But Footy, because we've got some Winter Sport World Championships coming up over the next few weeks. And we are going to be putting a real focus on some of those athletes that we are all going to be hopefully cheering on, supporting this time next year when the Winter Olympics are taking place in Italy. So let's just recap briefly here the weekend just gone. Mia Brooks bagged a third place in Calgary in the Slopestyle World Cup last week. Zoe Atkin claimed a share of the freeski halfpipe Crystal Globe title after 3 podiums in 5 World Cups. Terrific performance as well for Dave Riding. He delivered Britain's best ever men's Alpine World Championships result in nearly a century, finishing an incredible 6th in the slalom. There was an overall bronze medal for Team Hall in the 4-man bobsleigh World Cup. So Brad Hall, Greg Cackett, Liam Greenwood, Aaron Gulliver and Taylor Lawrence secured another overall podium after 6 out of 7 top 3 finishes. I'm excited for the bobsleigh team. You can also stay with us because I'm also very excited about ice skating. We've got a big event coming to Sheffield, a big championship, global championships coming to Sheffield next year, which is going to be really good. So we are going to be talking about that event and we are going to be talking about figure skating on the next edition of the podcast. We will be joined by Lila and Lewis, who, of course, recently won a European Championship medal in figure skating. We are also going to be looking ahead to the Winter Paralympics as well, with a year to go. So looking forward to that.
Crazy how it all comes around, isn't it? It all comes around so quickly.
There's always an Olympics just on the horizon. And if people pick up, it's seriously, if people pick up on your idea, there will always be an Olympic event on the horizon, whether that is an urban championships, whether that is a British Olympic Championship qualifier event, something like that. There's always something for us to get our teeth into. And don't forget, you can always follow us 24/7, 365 days a year on our social media feeds. We do try and keep up with everything. I say we, that's mainly John, tries to keep up with everything across all the social media platforms. You can also read our latest blogs. I'm really looking forward to this presidential candidate one. We might get that in time for when Catherine Granger is standing as next president of the IOC in another decade or so.
I've written it down. It's on my to-do list.
You can find that at anythingbutfooty.com. Don't forget our Olympics music playlist is still there on Spotify as well. And do stay with us. We are moving on to Milan and looking ahead to LA.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.